when we talk about, starting to design that succession plan, whether it's the first conversation or the third, a lot of times, the current generation, they start looking for advisors, but they may not be the most critical people to lead the succession planning process based on what we talked about. They may not be who you think, and expand on that a little bit, that idea. Allison?
So, yeah. So I will often have introductory conversations with a patriarch. He's like, well, we've got to come up with a succession plan. Like, well, you really don't. The people who are going to be here need to have ownership in this plan, because a succession plan, if you've got one person or a couple people dictating what successive generations are going to do and how they're going to do it, that's how you end up with the scenario Rob just described. That makes no sense. If you want the business, if the goal is to have the business succeed, or at least have people there who are qualified, then you need to have those folks at the table. Family, non-family, who are the players? Just like you were saying, Michael, at the beginning, you earned out your dad, you bought out your dad. Every succession plan needs to have an earn out. And while it might not be a financial transaction back to the patriarch, in fact, you usually don't want that, you can still earn it. And we're constantly talking with our families about who should be doing this, not who do you want because they favor you, or not who is the special grandkid at the table. Let's put our business hats on and let's talk about how's this going to work. And if you don't know the answer, let's find someone who does, and let's get them to the table on this. Because otherwise, I feel like really good intentions end up with a lot of unintended consequences. And the patriarch's not here to sort it out.
Agreed. That's great. Thank you. Rob?
I totally agree with that. And I think there are unintended consequences when you don't have the right advisor doing your succession planning. In fact, it's really hard to have just one advisor to do this. I believe that there's at least three conversations going on at once when the patriarch or the second gen or third gen comes to one of us and says, I need a succession plan. They're thinking about succession of wealth. They're thinking about succession of leadership. They're thinking about succession of business. So if the individual, the family member, goes to their trusted advisor, the attorney, well, they're going to be coming at it from one perspective, their area of knowledge and expertise. Or if they only go see their estate planner, their wealth manager, it's only going to be from one perspective, or their CPA. So I really believe it's important that families interview and select an advisory team. And Allison and I have been on these advisory teams before, and it just depends. That's kind of my role as a generalist, is I quarterback it, but we bring experts in, expert advisors, to get the best wealth plan, the best business succession plan, and the best leadership succession plan.
Yeah. And what you're saying fits the, kind of the philosophy that we have, is that designing a succession plan is a two-step process, right? You got to do the people part first. And that's, Rob, that's where you spend a lot of time. And Allison, you do as well, but it's also, then you got to get to the technical part. Where are the taxes? Where are the documents? Where are the investments going if a sale is part of this, whether it's between generations or not. So it's really, the people have to come first, because we got to be thinking about, the generation that may be stepping away. How's it the impact on employees? What's the impact on leadership? What's the impact on, the siblings that aren't part of the business. You know, when you start to put all of those pieces together, if we don't address each of those people pieces, the technical stuff doesn't matter, does it?
That's
It
right.
really
And it's
does.
also the third piece, Michael, would be the business, the operations, because what thwarts succession planning is the patriarch's success model that got them there. Allison said this at the very beginning, is not going to get them there in the future. So
Right.
that has to be addressed. And the patriarch has to understand that there's a time to let go and let the next generation put their fingerprints on the business. Michael, Allison, you both have experienced this, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that is that other third element of the conversation that a lot of times nobody wants to deal with because it's too confrontational before Thanksgiving dinner.
Right.
It is. And you know, I can't tell you how many times someone would come to me and say, oh, you're working for your father. Oh, those are some big shoes to fill. I wonder if you're going to be able to do it. And I'm like, first of all, he wears Allen Edmonds and I wear Stuart Weitzman. So there's no shoe filling happening here. Second of all, I'm me. I'm going to do what I can do. So if you come at this expecting me to replicate Paul, you will be disappointed. And I don't see beneficiaries always having, or next gens always having the strength to stand up and say, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean replicate? What do you mean continue on? I have something fresh to bring to the table, new to bring to the table. But I will say it is very rare. Rob was an exception for me personally years ago. It was rare for anybody to come to me and want to know what I had to say.
Mm-hmm.
It was really about how are you going to continue what someone else has been doing? And I think that is unfair to all parties involved. It's not realistic. There's a lot of crossover. I've learned and benefited from my father's experience tremendously. And I honor that, but I don't let it inhibit me. And I can see people, I've interacted with folks who get inhibited. They get handicapped by that societal pressure of repeating what's happened or sustaining it. But really, don't we all know that in businesses, you have to be ever evolving in order to thrive? So it's counterintuitive. And yet that's
right.
what we as a society do to the families.
And to maybe advocate for the first gen or the founding gen or the sitting leading gen, let me advocate there. It is very difficult to see your sibling different than your son or daughter. They've known you ever since you were born, and they know what your experiences are. So they relate to you as that cute brownie that went on a camping trip, right? It's hard for them to say, oh, wow, you can actually take over this enterprise and you're going to do something better or different than I've ever done. And so there has to be that atmosphere of empathy and understanding. I get called today more from the second generation than I do from the sitting generation on, hey, I need a succession plan. I need you to build it. And then just let me have something I can shove in front of my father's face or my two uncles, right? It just doesn't work. And so we have to have empathy for all generations, everybody involved. That's why the team's important. That's why your advisory group is important. And it's hard work. Allison said it. It's very, very hard work. And it's very dynamic because as you start peeling it back, it's more than likely we're going to find out, well, I just never thought I would ever have a daughter running my business. I thought it was always going to be one of my sons. Well, there you go. Then who's the best qualified? What happens to be two of my daughters are the best qualified.
Right.
So then you break down all these dreams and you have to work it through. It's not wrong or bad.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of helping all generations work through the scenarios. And then once that scenario gets declared in that family first or business first declaration, from there, to your point, Michael, now you can work on the technical side. You can work on the business side.
Yeah, and that dance between the technical and the people is ongoing. I remember when there was a part of this process that my father and I were working on, and I could tell something wasn't comfortable for him, but I couldn't figure out what it was. And so I went and talked to him. I said, what is it? And he said, I didn't realize how hard this would be for me. It's all right. It's all good. But I talk about identity, right? That was a piece, really didn't have anything to do with me, but it was presenting itself during the process. And so while I experienced that in our own transition, I see it often. And I talk to the next gens and say, you know what? You might be frustrated that things aren't going quickly enough or things aren't happening the way you think they should. But the more patience and empathy you have for your parent, the better this will go on the familial side of things. You can all still enjoy getting together. And I went slower than some people were encouraging me to do in our transition, because I wanted to respect the timetable that was my father's. That was more important to me than anything else. And I see that the families who stay attuned and kind of keep radar on that and go in anticipating that it will be difficult have better outcomes as a family, and less moms brokenhearted and torn between fathers and sons or kids. And I mean, it can eat people up, and it doesn't have to. It's easier if you go in with the expectation that, one, it's hard and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah. You know what? It goes back to what we were talking about before, where it's that team. You need to make sure that somebody on the team is taking care of the people and somebody's thinking about the technical.